טוב, אנשים, אנחנו ככה נתחיל ב5 דקות ראשונות, ניתן לאנשים להצטרף. אני מציע שתרשמו שאלות בצ'אט, אוקיי? מה הייתם רוצים להשיג בהרצאה היום, בשידור היום, בראיון היום, אבל תרשמו באנגלית כדי שדון קוסטה יוכל לראות את זה ולראות את השאלות. אז תרשמו את השאלות ואני אוכל להציץ פה קצת מדי פעם. מה הייתם רוצים להשיג בשידור בראיון היום שיש לנו עם דון קוסטה, שהוא עושה מעל 100 פליפים בשנה, מרחוק, שלט רחוק, בדיוק כמו שישראלים רוצים. אז תשאלו שאלות בצד בצ'אט, וניתן עוד 3 דקות לאנשים להצטרף, ככה אנחנו עושים כל פעם. אני אציץ ככה מדי פעם על המסך בצד. אז לרשום באנגלית, אוקיי? כדי שיוכל לראות את השאלות. זהו, אתם מוזמנים גם להגיד שלום. בואו נראה רגע מה אתם יכולים לרשום, מה אתם כותבים. רגע, אני צריך לסדר את זה. איפה אני רואה את הצ'אט? אוקיי. לרשום באנגלית. חברים, לרשום באנגלית. תוכלו write in English so Don Costa can see your questions before we start. 2 minutes and we're going to start. אוקיי. יש פה שאלות מצוינות. איך אנחנו מוצאים קבלנים. אני גם רשמתי שאלות. ממש עוד 2 דקות נתחיל. אם אתם רואים בשידור, אז אתם יכולים להעביר קדימה קצת, כי אנחנו מקליטים כדי שאני לא אשכח להקליט. הצ'אט לא גלוי לכולם, זה נכון, בכוונה, כי אחרת יהיה פה דיון בין אנשים, ואני לא אצליח לבוא ולראות את השאלות. אז פשוט תרשמו. מעולה, מעולה, עוד 2 דקות אנחנו מתחילים. בינתיים, גם אני רוצה לוודא ששומעים אותי טוב, כי בקודמים אמרו לי ששמעו אותי פחות טוב, אז האם עכשיו שומעים אותי טוב? אני החלפתי איזה רמקול, מיקרופון, מעולה. מצוין, מעולה, יופי. loud and clear, מעולה. אוקיי. בואו נראה. נסתכל לראות. אוקיי. אם יש למישהו בעיה בצ'אט, אני לא כל כך יכול לתמוך, אני רואה פה בוואטסאפ הודעה על זה, אני לא יכול לטפל בזה כרגע, ננסה לבדוק את זה בפעם הבאה. מוזמן לרשום לי פה בוואטסאפ ואני אנסה להקריא. אוקיי, טוב, 9:05 אנחנו פשוט... אוקיי, נתחיל. אז קודם כל, שלום לכולם, ברוכים הבאים לחדר מצב, שידורי חדר מצב כל יום ראשון ב9. אנחנו כל שבוע ננסה לדבר עם בעלי מקצוע מכיוונים שונים, על מה קורה במשבר, מה הם עשו לפני, אסטרטגיות שונות, על דברים שהם עושים. ננסה לתת באמת כל שבוע ערך אחר, זווית אחרת להשקעות נדל"ן בארצות הברית, של עשה והצמיחה בעיקר, שזה בעצם הדיל מייקר. אז ככה, למי שלא מכיר אותי, אני יודע שיש פה המון תלמידים, כל שבוע אני עושה את ההצגה הקצרה הזאת, אז למי שלא מכיר אותי, אני מזרחי, אני עושה נדל"ן כבר 12 שנה, 10 שנים בעצם בארצות הברית, עשיתי מעל 300 טרנזקציות של קנייה, שיפוץ והשכרה, קנייה, שיפוץ ומכירה, הולסלינג, בשנתיים האחרונות אני עושה מולטי פמילי, פרויקטים של 80 יחידות ומעלה, אני בפרויקט השישי, 766 יחידות. האמת שנשאר לנו בפרויקט האחרון מספר מקומות מוגבל, אז מי שמעוניין מציע לבוא ולשלוח אימייל למשרד. אני אתן לכם רגע לינק, שיהיה לכם לשלוח אימייל למשרד או להתקשר מחר בבוקר. דימה, יש לי גם לינק שהכנתי, בואו נראה רגע. אז אתם יכולים לבוא ולהשאיר, אם מישהו מעוניין להצטרף לפרויקט המולטי פמילי שלנו, שאנחנו מובילים, אני לא אשתף על זה הרבה עכשיו כרגע, שישאיר פרטים בלינק הזה. חוץ מזה, אני מ-2012 מלמד משקיעים איך לקנות בעצמם נכסים בארצות הברית, לעשות את זה בעצמם. מפה מגיע השם דיל מייקר, מעל 750 תלמידים. יש לנו תלמידים שהולכים וקונים את זה כבר בזמן הקורס, יש כאלה שקצת אחרי. אם אתם מעוניינים לבוא ולשמוע על התוכנית הקרובה, סיימנו עכשיו, בעצם סגרנו מחזור אחד, אנחנו פותחים בגלל ההיענות מחזור נוסף ביוני, אז אם מעניין אתכם לשמוע אתכם על התוכנית, ולא הצטרפתם עדיין, אתם מוזמנים להיכנס בלינק הזה. אוקיי, מוזמנים להיכנס בלינק הזה, ולהשאיר פרטים על הקורס. אם אתם רוצים להשאיר פרטים וגם מדברו איתכם על המולטי פמילי, גם פה אתם יכולים. אז זה לגבי התוכנית. דיברתי על המולטי פמילי, על הפרויקט האחרון. אני לא ארחיב על רוצים לבוא ולדעת השקעה בפרויקט הזה, תשאירו פרטים. אז זה לגבי זה. דבר נוסף, מי שלא מכיר את הקבוצה בפייסבוק שלנו של דיל מייקר, אז אני מציע לכם גם פה להיכנס, אוקיי? זה הלינק לדיל מייקר שלנו, לקבוצה, ובכלל אם אתם רוצים להשאיר פרטים, רגע, קצת קשה, פה, הנה, אופס, העתק הדבק, סליחה. מוזמנים להתקשר למשרד או להשאיר פרטים. זהו, אנחנו מתחילים לראיין את דון קוסטה. יהיה לי ככה כמה הנחיות, יהיה לנו קשה לראות את כל השאלות ולעקוב אחרי השאלות. כבר הכנתי סט של שאלות, מי שרוצה להערך לפני החדר מצב ולשלוח שאלות, ממליץ להיכנס לקבוצה בפייסבוק ולהשאיר בקבוצה בפייסבוק את השאלות, ואז אני אוכל להתכונן ולהוסיף את השאלות שלכם. כל מי שנותן לי פה מחמאות על החדר מצב, תודה, זה בשבילכם. ויאללה, בואו נתחיל. Okay, Don, I'm ready. And if you can join, let me. Okay, all right. So, have you learned Hebrew already?
I have not, but it was great listening to you.
It's very hard to learn. I gotta say that.
Right.
But you know, languages is one of the things that I believe it's very important. That's what I'm telling my boys. They need to learn as many languages as they can, because this is the way, you know, I think the future is this.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
My son I have a son who speaks Hebrew, he knows Arabic, and he speaks a little bit English because of YouTube. So.
Very cool. Yeah, my sons are learning some different languages as well. My wife is actually teaching children in China how to speak English right now. So she does it via, you know, the internet, which is pretty cool. You know, she does classes daily, so it's fun to watch.
Yeah, great. So Don, we are very, very you know, excited to host you here. And people started to ask questions, but I prepared the interview. So before we jump to questions and talk about what you're doing, you know, how you do it, can you please introduce yourself, who you are, what you're doing?
Sure, absolutely. So, of course, my name is Don Costa. I am in California. I'm in Fresno, California, the Central Valley, about 3 hours south of the Bay Area. So roughly 3 hours from San Francisco and about 4 hours north of LA. So I'm kind of smack dab in the middle of California. I grew up just north of here. So spent most of my life in California. I have a family, 3 kids, 2 boys and a daughter and a wife. And I do the real estate investing thing. I've been doing it since 2003, started as a flipper. Started door knocking pre-foreclosures, properties that were in default. and just talking to sellers, talking them into, me being the solution that, for them to sell if they're looking to sell, and started rehabbing properties. And I've been doing it ever since. I had a road bump in 2008 where my ego got the best of me and I didn't think and operate properly. And I lost a lot of money in the last market crash, and I had to rebuild and reinvent myself in 2012. And now I rehab and I wholesale, and that's my primary business. So I've been around for a while, been through and seen a lot. And this is what I love. This, a lot of people say, well, what's your hobby, right? This, like, my time with my family is the most important thing to me. And then second to that is my business. My business really is my hobby. It's what I love to do. It's my sport. And so I live it and I breathe it.
Yeah. That's why you called your company Flip Talk.
Right. Yeah.
So I want to, before we start talking about flips and how you do it from a distance, what have you said something that you got interfered by your ego, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So can you tell more about that? What happened there?
Well, I think like a lot of people who are entrepreneurs, a lot of us who get into business, not all of us, but most of us don't come from money, right? We're striving to better our lives, change our family's trajectory. And so as the core of my being, I'm an entrepreneur first. Real estate's the widget, it's the product, right? So I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I got into real estate in 2003, realized I was very good at it, and I made a lot of money very quick. And I was young, I was relatively young, and to make that much money that fast and that easily, it went to my head, and I thought that it was me. I thought that I was really, really good at what I did. In reality, looking back on it, we were in a market in 2003, 4, and 5 that really, it was so good. The appreciation in the market hid any mistakes you made in business. It hid the fact that you were a bad business person. And so, trials and tribulations in life, the stumbling blocks that we hit, the roadblocks that we hit in life are the things that make us grow as people, as husbands, fathers, wives. It makes us grow as business people. And the challenges really make us better. Well, in that time period, as I'm growing my business, I had limited challenges because every time I made a mistake, I made more money. And so my ego got the best of me. And I thought that it was never going to end. And I thought that no matter what the market did, I would be able to survive it because I was great. And I was a bad leader. I was a bottleneck in my organization. All decisions had to go through me. I didn't trust my people to make decisions. I mean, you name it. There were just a ton of mistakes that I made. So when 2008 hit, I was naive. I was foolish. I wasn't leading properly. I had too many things going on. I was starting other businesses because I thought I was great, and so much money going out that I wasn't able to react to what the market was doing. And it was, for lack of a better term, it was like a noose around my neck. I mean, it was just getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and there was nothing I could do about it except just watch the money leave. At a certain point. So over a period of years, I lost everything. Literally I was going to the gas station with quarters to buy gas at a gallon at a time, or to the grocery store with the calculator. I get calls from my wife crying because she'd be at the grocery store with a cart full of groceries and the card wouldn't clear. Christmas is not being able to buy my kids presents. I mean, I went through hard times because I let my ego get the best of me.
Yeah, it sounds like a very, very tough time. I've been in tough time, but it's when I remember one there is like a New Year, Jewish New Year, when we sat home in the family, and I was like tears in my eyes. I said, I gotta fix it. So right. I know what you mean.
Right.
And so how did you were able to take yourself, and said, okay, I got to do it again? Because once you get a big hit, how do you take yourself and say, okay, I'm trying again?
Well, some people may have the strength to do that. I'm not going to be one that will lie to everybody here and say that I was one of those people. Really, what happened was I hit rock bottom. I mean, I had gotten to the point, in the U.S. I don't know about the rest of the world. And the rest of the world was struggling in 2008, 9, 10, right? But in the U.S. in particular, you couldn't get a job. I mean, it was almost impossible to get a job. Like the rest of the world, the economy was falling apart, lending was falling apart, and I had tried to get a job, and I couldn't. And I just, I had no money. I had no options. And one day I just kind of took a self-accounting. I had so many situations with my family of just failing them, that I finally just stopped and went, okay, what do I know? And I was like, I know how to put a deal together. I know what the formula for a deal is, what it looks like. And I know how to raise private capital to make it work. I know how to do that. And, but I was scared. I was really, really scared because I thought at the time real estate had been the catalyst that destroyed me. Really, looking back now, my naivety and my ego was the catalyst that destroyed me. It wasn't real estate. Had I been running a real business, I would have made a lot of money when that market crash happened. So, but at the time, at rock bottom, you don't realize that. You think that the real estate is what destroyed you, right? So I looked in the mirror. I was like, what am I good at? Okay, this is what I'm good at. Well, let's try. And so one day I put an ad on Craigslist and I just said, experienced flipper looking for, private money partner, must be close enough to have a cup of coffee. And had 6 people call, met with one, met with him a number of times. At the time I was scared to pull the trigger and ask him to back me on a project. It wasn't until probably the 4th or 5th meeting I was sitting there with him at a Starbucks, and I got a text from my wife that our water had been shut off. And I made the decision right there, really out of necessity, that I was not going to leave that meeting until he committed to backing me on a project. And I got the commitment in that meeting, went home and turned my water back on because I knew how to do that. So, and went out and started looking for properties. So, that was probably May of 2012. And in June of 2012, we locked up the first one, started the rehab. And in September of 2012, we made 20 grand on that property. I got half that money. I got 10 grand. That money was gone before I got it. Obviously I had things to pay, but it was proof of concept again. And once, like a lot of people, mindset really is the biggest hurdle, right? And so for me, it was being able to see that I could make it successful again. It was game on. It was like then from that point on, I was on fire.
Gotcha. And what lesson beside the ego, what did you change, that going ahead that you said, okay, this time that's what I'm going to do. And especially now when we see that the market was very hot, and now with the COVID, nobody knows really what will happen, right? Mm-hmm. Chances that there's going to be recession, but nobody really, nobody really knows. So what did you change in the way you do the flips or your business?
Well, so the first thing I did is I changed, how I ran a business. I wanted this time around to run a real business. So, building the right team, finding people that are teachable and coachable, and then building them into people I could trust and count on, and not being a bottleneck, allowing them to be successful and excel in their role and getting out of their way. That was number one. So my business can actually run without me. If I'm distracted or I'm on vacation with family or I'm doing something else, my business, my ability to operate is not held up like it was last time around. That was number one. Number two, I stuck to my core competency. The last time around, I was doing like 5 different businesses. I opened a restaurant, and nightclub. I was doing property management, real estate sales, loan, flipping. Like I had all these things going on. And so this time around, I made it a point to stick to my core competency and make sure that I really had that dialed in. Those are 2 big takeaways. The third is when it comes to like running the business and rehabbing. In 2003, 4, and 5, like I said, if you took longer to rehab a property and you made every mistake in the world, you got rewarded. You made money. And that's a false insecurity. In the real world, if you take too long and you make mistakes, you lose money. When we started this business again, I decided to make sure that we ran everything efficiently on time. We put systems and processes in place, communication tools in place to make sure that things didn't fall through the cracks and things happen when they're supposed to. And then we committed to do our rehabs. Like our goal is to turn a rehab in 120 days, period. Our averages right now is about 100 days from the time we buy it to the time we sell it and get our check. And the reason is because I don't feel that if there's a market shift or turn that I'm gonna get caught in 120 days. If I'm in a project 6 months or 8 months or a year, the likelihood of me getting caught in that project when the market starts to deteriorate or depreciate is, higher. The faster I'm in and out of a project, the less likely I'm going to get caught. So that's one of the other things we did is time. Time has been a very important and crucial fundamental practice in our business.
Okay. So you say it's about 100, 120, which is about 3 to 4 months. Yeah, from buy, fix, and so the projects. So you don't take. Do you take projects which are, let's say, gutted, or?
Yeah, we will. Yeah, we will. I mean, and we'll take projects that are full blown, like, you know, we're moving walls all the way to just cosmetic, right? To really, really easy. But the things we look at when we do that are, you know, where are we with our crews and our timelines and our efficiencies at that time, you know, as far as can we get in and start the project right away, or is it going to sit for a minute, you know? So that'll be part of our decision-making process when we buy. Can we buy it better to compensate if for whatever reason we're going to hold the property a little longer than we want to? Can we buy it better to compensate for that? But no matter what, we don't want to be in a project for 6 months. Like I said, 120 days is our goal to as the maximum time in a project. Typically, like I said, we average about 100. You know, we've been as fast as 68 days. I mean, I think our fastest project was 68 days. Bought it, renovated it, resold it, and it was one that just had zero hiccups. But yeah, so we will do full blown gut projects. It's just a matter of we make sure the efficiencies are in place.
Okay, which kind of project you will not take? You see a deal and say, no, this one I'm not going to do.
Well, okay. The best way to answer that is there's a few things to consider. There's two types of projects I won't take. One is based on a 2-strike rule. Okay. So we have this 2-strike rule. Anything that is going to hinder the sale of the property in some way or discourage a buyer in some way is a strike. So a property that is on a busy street would be 1 strike. Okay. A property with no garage would be a strike. So if a property's on a busy street with no garage, that's 2 strikes. We typically will not do that project because I've had a project like that where I've had one in the same area, almost back to back, where one was on an inner street and one was on a busy street. And the one on the inner street sold real quick and the one on the busy street took forever to sell. So if
you said 1 strike or 2 strike?
2 strikes. If it has 2 strikes, we won't do it. So high end on a busy street is 2 strikes. No garage on a busy street is 2 strikes. Something that's cosmetically unfavorable about the property, that's uncorrectable, and say it's high end and cosmetically unfavorable, or high end and on a busy street, then that would be 2 strikes. So anything with 2 strikes, we typically won't do. There is a caveat to that. If we can get it where the price point makes enough sense that we can compensate for that, then we may do the project, but we won't do the project otherwise.
But garage you can build. So
sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. It depends on the area you're in.
If you can, it's not a strike.
If you can build it and it makes sense in the project, then yeah. If it's like I said, anything that's not correctable.
Okay. And what is the spread you are looking to get? Can you talk about how do you do the calculation and say, okay, this deal makes sense, or in those numbers make sense? What are the calculations?
So the way we operate is there's 2 ways. Let me back up. There's 2 ways that rehabbers will operate. One is they want a minimum profit. Okay. So say I want to make 30,000 on every deal, and that's how they operate. And they don't really care how much they invest. They just want to make a minimum profit. I operate on a cash on cash basis. So I want to make, we shoot for 20% return on every property. So if we invest all in purchase cost, rehab costs, and holding costs, $100,000, we want to make a minimum of $20,000. So we'll go down to 15. In some cases, we'll go down even a little bit lower than that, but our threshold desire is 20%. And so there's a couple reasons why. One is because we want to turn the money 3 times in a year. So we effectively make 15 to 20% on a property on that same money 3 times in a year. And we made 45 to 60% return on the same capital. So we look at a cash on cash. So if we go, like I said, purchase price, rehab, and holding costs, we're all in $100,000, and our goal is 20% on that project. We want to make $20,000 minimum on that project. But
you have a cost for, what is the cost for the you're taking a loan, you're taking private money. So how do you do the split? You do 50-50, or you give them like a bridge, you give them percentage, like a rate?
We treat them like a bank. So we work with private money. We work with private individuals only. And we do 1 lender, 1 project. So they loan the money. It goes into escrow. We give a note and deed of trust, just like you give a bank. It gets recorded against the property in first lien position. And then of course, we purchase the property and renovate the property, and we generally give them interest. So we don't do splits anymore. We used to years back, but we don't do that anymore. And typically the standard is about 10% interest, on the project. So, and again, if we keep your money, if we move it from project to project to project, we keep doing projects with you, then you're going to average about 10% a year on the money.
So you give them, you said how much the rate you're giving them? 10%?
10%.
10%. And when you say 20, the spread is 20%, is after you pay them or before? We
internally calculate that percentage before we pay. That's before the cost of money. We will make 20% return. So in that particular scenario, on most projects, we'll end up walking with about a 15% return on the property based on the investment after the cost of money. But you got to think, because we're not putting any of our own money in the projects, our return's actually infinite. If you really want to get down to the mathematics of it, right? Yes. It's infinite return. But that margin that we want, it's designed to give us, the profitability we want, but it's also designed to hedge against any shift in the market, because it's a good spread for us to be able to make the lender whole and still walk away from the property without losing money if there's a shift in the market. So if you think about, like, in our particular, the main market I operate in, in 2008, we dropped about 25% in value. So the reality is, if I'm only in a project for 3 or 4 months, I'm going to be able to get out of that project, make the investor whole, and still make money if there's a turn in the market. That's really what it's designed for.
Okay, got you. And so let's talk about the deal. Another aspect of the deal. How do you find your deals? You going directly to owners, wholesalers, on the market?
All the above. We have found deals on the MLS, not as much anymore, but we have. Used to in 2012, 13, 14, it was a really good source for us. We buy from wholesalers all the time, and we do direct to sellers. So we do a lot of direct mail. Combined between 2018 and 2019, I sent out about 2 million postcards. So, we do an aggressive amount of direct to seller marketing. We do text messaging. We do some RVM stuff. We don't do any PPC or any pay-per-click, but we do, and we're just starting cold calling actually this next week pretty heavily. So we do a tremendous amount of postcards.
Just from curiosity, how much is the conversion rate, on the mailers? I remember when I did it in 2015, it was around 5%, which was very high. And now it's about how much? 0.5%?
Well, it's going to depend on the market you're in, right? So we're about a half a percent. It depends on the list and the time of year. We range between 0.04% and 0.09% return. So depending on the list and the time of year. And then if you break it down, like we break down our marketing to a very granular level. Like if it's an equity list with a green postcard, it's got one phone number. If it's an equity list with a Google Street postcard, it's got a different phone number. Like I know what card and what list is performing. I know when they're performing in a time of year. So one of the reasons why we're able to make things work at that level effectively is because we understand it to a granular level.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. And okay. So and where do you live in California? So where do you invest?
So we go from Bakersfield, California, up into the Bay Area. So actually Bakersfield to Sacramento, and then we're in 2 counties in the Bay. So Alameda County and Contra Costa County. Alameda County has like Oakland, if you're familiar with the state of California. We are also up in Oregon right now. We do a little bit in and out of Las Vegas, Nevada, but we haven't really committed to Las Vegas yet. But we are in Oregon, in a couple of cities up in Oregon right now.
Okay. So is it in your backyard or it's far away? How do you
consider? Oregon's 12 hours away on a good day. The Bay Area counties are about 3 hours away. Sacramento's 3 hours away. Bakersfield's 2 hours away. So it's a combination of our backyard and other states in several hours. And we are literally, like right now, putting footprint in Nashville. Not Nashville, but Tennessee. So Nashville, Knoxville. We'll be entering those markets here over the next couple of months. Which is half the country away.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. And how do you make a decision if you're not there, you're not seeing the property? How do you know how much the rehab is, right? How do you estimate the rehab from far away?
So there's a few ways to do it. Obviously, without seeing the property, it's we use formulas and stuff based on information that we're getting on the properties, like asking the sellers questions, pictures, and stuff like that. So when we're buying at a distance, we really rely a lot on the conversation with the seller and then pictures. We ask the seller to send us pictures, and we go through that information, and we always let them know if there's anything that you didn't disclose to us, or anything that you held back, or anything that you didn't take a picture of that you probably should have, that we find before we close, or we may have to have a conversation about price. We always preference the conversation in that. So, but generally, it's just going through, and we have a whole list of questions that we ask the seller. Is there anything in the property that you would change if you were going to stay? How old's the roof? How old's the AC? How old's the windows? Anything you're not happy with? Anything that's broken and not working? And then we ask them to send us pictures of the roof, the windows, the kitchens, the bathrooms, anything else that stands out in the home that may be in disrepair or issues. And we make the assessments that way. So if there's still questions, then we'll either team up with buyers. If we're wholesaling, we'll have the buyers send us information. We'll have obviously I have a pretty good reach at this point in time, having a podcast for 3 years. We'll have some of the people we've established relationships with maybe go drive by the property and give us information. So if we need that extra step.
Okay. So so you don't use any boots on the ground that will go and see the property?
Not anymore. We had acquisitions in all the markets, and now we close everything over the phone. So even in our own market, we close everything over the phone. We do once we're in contract, we will, like, if it's close enough, we'll have one of our project managers. If we're going to close on it, we'll have one of our project managers go and take a look at the property, either walk it or drive by it, and make sure that there's no issues that stand out. So, but typically, if it's in a market that we're not operating in, like, in our backyard, right, that's a few hours away, we rely heavily on pictures. And in a lot of cases, we're going to wholesale those right now anyway. So if the buyer's happy with it, we're fine with it. It's not a big issue. If we're going to close on it for some reason, for me, I need to have somebody that I can rely on giving me good information to go buy that property and look. And then we'll leverage either an agent that we know in that market or a wholesaler we know in that market to go and get that information for us. There's a company for everybody that's listening right now. There's a company out there called We Go Look. It's wegolook.com, and you can actually pay them to go take pictures of a property and do mini inspections of properties as well if you need that reassurance. And for me, I'm a little bit more of a conservative investor, so if I'm going to close on it and commit money to that project, then somebody that I can trust is going to have to put some eyes on it.
Okay. So in what point you send a contractor to give you a bid? After you close, or when are you going to do it?
So for me, I have project managers now. So my project managers are solid enough to put a good number on the property. We don't have to have a contractor give us a bid. But if I did not have that, then I would have a contractor give me a bid before I closed. Now, for somebody that's operating virtual in a market that they're not able to set foot in, I would definitely have a contractor that you are comfortable with put numbers on the property before you close on the property. It's just good business. So from where I stand, I don't close on anything unless I put eyes on it and I put a number on it, or my project manager has put numbers on it, or somebody that I have trusted has went and seen the property and given me some information that I can count on.
Okay. So two things here. I think it will be interesting for people. One is, how do you find a management and project manager, right? Mm-hmm. And what is the contract you do with him? What do you agree with him to do? Like pricing, what is duties? That's one. And second is, how do you pick a contractor? What the due diligence you're doing? I always say hire slow, fast.
Right.
I heard it in America, and that's what I'm doing. Management companies, contractor. But I would like to hear your opinion. How do you do it?
So my answer for anybody that we hire, whether it's an outside contractor or internal team member, we look for teachable and coachable. That's first and foremost, foundationally, more than the experience. We look for somebody who's teachable and coachable. We want somebody that we're going to be able to work with. So when it comes to project manager, we're looking for somebody teachable and coachable. We're looking for somebody, obviously, that has the ability to communicate clearly, and stick to timelines, manage processes, not get too crazy or frazzled. And, we're looking for somebody that can manage people well. So the duties of our project manager is to, obviously understand the numbers and understand the process on the job, make sure that, we're hiring the right contractor for the job. Like we work with multiple contractors. One contractor we have is good at, making, cosmetic repairs and stuff on the fly, on quick and not really expensive, while another contract may be better at something that's higher end and need a little bit more attention to detail when it comes to, the quality or, the design. So knowing which contractor is best fit for that particular project. Understanding the scope of work, understanding the flow of construction, making sure that everything's clearly communicated and timelines are held to, starting the contractor, hold them accountable, checking to make sure that the process is being finished in a timely manner, on budget, on quality, things like that. They're really kind of the overseer of the whole process. They're the one in control, and you got to be able to count on them and their capability to hold everybody accountable and to the process and to the timeline. So I pay the two that I pay them a salary in my operation. There are a number of ways you can do it. You can pay them per project. You can pay them hourly. You can pay them a share of the project. You can pay them just whatever. The key to, I think, any employee, especially with project management or anything in your operation, is to find out what their goal is. And what's is that goal in line with your goal? So if you're looking for somebody that maybe part-time project management, find out, what they'd like to make, how many, how committed they're going to be to the job. Obviously you want somebody committed, and then help shape however you're going to pay them to meet what's best for your company and help them achieve their goal. And that may be a per project, and that way you're not paying them when they're not working, type of thing. So, I think the key understanding is not to be afraid to ask what their goal is. And because a lot of employers will want to, well, what should I pay them? And is it going to be enough? And are they going to want it? And I just ask, and I try to make things work for everybody. So for the contractors, again, teachable and coachable. But yeah.
Sorry, Don, before you go to the contractor, how do you find the project manager? How do you,
yeah,
advertise it?
Wise Hire, Craigslist. Wise Hire is a great one that shoots out to everybody. You can go to Indeed. Craigslist is a good way. Asking for referrals. Asking real estate agents or even title companies you're working with if they know anybody in the field that would be a great project manager. So there's
Wise Hire.
Wise Hire, WIZEHIRE.
Wise Hire. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you ask for a referral and you check online, Craigslist, and
mm-hmm.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah.
And for contractors?
So for contractors, typically the way we hire contractors is we'll go through Craigslist and their postings. We'll go through like Angie's List and some of the other listing services. We'll drive neighborhoods, which can be a little harder when you're virtual, but we'll drive neighborhoods and look for work being done and make contact with contractors on homes. And so that's how we're sourcing them, right? We're kind of turning the dirt looking for gold. Once we get somebody on the phone, we go through the same process. And basically we ask them, we let them know who we are, what we're doing. So we're rehabbers and we're looking for contractors to work with on our flips. It's funny because half the people will say, you know what, we don't work with rehabbers or flippers. Okay. So half of them will eliminate themselves right away. Then the other half will keep talking. We'll let them know, okay, we're looking for somebody who understands that we need competitive pricing. We're not a retail customer. We're not looking to have you make nothing. We want you to make money. We need that sweet spot in the middle where we're both kind of uncomfortable. It's kind of wholesale pricing. And then, half of those will usually eliminate themselves, right? And they'll say, no, I'm not interested. I want retail pricing. So then you got the last group that you're talking to that is willing to talk to you about competitive pricing. Then we'll ask them at that point in time, basically we need somebody on our team or somebody we're associated with to see a project that you have going and a project that you have finished. So this is where, you might want to have, like, if you're virtual, have we go look, check out one of their projects, or if you're establishing relationships in that market with maybe a real estate agent or a wholesaler in that market, you have them go look at the project for you, right? So that's typically what we do in areas, like up in Oregon, we have somebody we trust, go check out their work.
So you want to see a work in progress and work they've done.
work is done. And the reason why I want the work in progress is because that really tells you a lot about their capability to manage. Like, is there debris? Is there trash? Is there safety issues on the job? Or when somebody goes to that job and, they're supposed to be halfway finished and they got, another 2 weeks worth of work, is there nobody there or one person there, or do they have a full team there? So a lot of times it's amazing. People won't think about what you're looking for, and they'll bring you to a job site and you'll look and you'll be like, well, you're supposed to be finished tomorrow and you're not even halfway done and you don't have anybody here. I don't think I'm going to hire you.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to really kind of vet individuals. So then the completed project, the reason why we want to say completed project is we actually want to pick on something. We want to find something that's not perfect. And like, for instance, like one time I went and looked at a job and there was something that wasn't straight. And I pointed that out. And the contractor who I hired back in 2012 and still works for us to this day, he said, you know what, if there's something on the job that I do for you that you're not happy with, I'll fix it. He showed me he was teachable and coachable. He didn't deny it. He didn't blame anybody. He didn't blame the homeowner. He didn't try to make excuses. He just said, if you're not happy, I'll fix it. And that's the person you want to hire.
Gotcha. That's a very good advice. Okay. One of the things I tell people that to talk with investors, to give reference and get investors that, that work with them. Sometimes the investor will say, no, don't work with him, never work with them. Or they will say, I'm asking, did he finish on time? Is there any, unexpected, how many unexpected items were in the job? Things like that. Did he ask for money before he finished? To see how was the relationship. Did he was angry at the job while you work with him? So to get, okay. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. The only thing I would say is, with that, I mean, everybody that's great advice, and it's advice that I would definitely give as well. The only thing I would say is there's been times where I've given somebody a good recommendation and then they haven't worked out for somebody. So it's important to really, do your own homework and set your own standard in that relationship, and not just, take the advice from somebody that person was good, but make sure you're doing your own due diligence and make sure that you are setting your standard in the beginning of that relationship, and not taking for granted that they were good, because otherwise you could end up with problems anyway. So,
yeah. So how do you, and what do you put in the contract when you work with them? What is very important to do in the contract?
Yeah. So we have, I mean, obviously, you do your standard contract with, the terms laid out and the scope of work and everything else. One of the things that I don't do is I don't pay large deposits. I just don't. A lot of contractors want 25% or 50% down. I don't. And there's a few reasons why. One of the reasons why is because of the way we pay. So we pay weekly, and you can pay weekly or biweekly, but we pay weekly. And so if you're going to start my project and you do demo and then you get your first check, you don't really need a large deposit to start that way. You got to take it from the position of, when you're trying to frame these relationships, is, their goal is to make sure they get paid. Your goal is to make sure work gets done. So they're asking for a large deposit so that way they're secure, but you don't want to give a large deposit because you don't want them to not show up the next day and not give your money. So you got to create a situation where you say, look, I understand you want to make sure you're okay, but I need to make sure the work is done. And then create a system in your organization that you're comfortable with. For us, it's paying weekly for work completed that you can get a contractor on board with and have that relationship controlled. If that makes sense. So that's important. It's really, really important to me when it comes to just being able to maintain relationships long term. I've heard so many horror stories, and I've even had the horror stories where you give somebody a large sum of money, and then they're not even close to being finished with the work committed to that money, and they're wanting more money, or they're threatening not to show up because they can't pay their guys. Because a lot of times, when you think about it, these are people that are really, really good with their hands, or they're really, really good at managing projects, but they may not be really, really good at managing a business and managing money. And so take the integrity or anything else away from that and just look at the fact that it may be somebody not good at managing and planning. And that's not a good recipe for giving a large amount of money to, as far as the person goes.
So you pay them weekly? How do you know how much to pay them?
So what we do is we have them, say today's Friday, right? We have them submit an invoice today telling us that next week they're going to complete X, Y, and Z. So say they're going to complete tile and internal paint and maybe cabinet install next week. And so they tell us that, and then by Friday, if that's done, we give them their check.
And if it's 80% done or 90% done, what do you do?
Then it really depends on the contractor. But somebody that we've only worked with, it's the first project, then we're going to recut the check and hold the difference. And we're only going to pay them for the work completed. If it's somebody that we have a really good ongoing relationship with, and we know that, say, that 10% or 20% is, paint, and maybe it rained in the middle of the week, and that's why they weren't able to get done, or there was another factor, or just the week got away from them, they weren't able to get done, but we know they're going to finish it on like Saturday or Sunday, then we'll go ahead and give them the check. So it's case by case. Yeah.
Okay. So in the contract, what you pay attention, what you do is that it's weekly payment, right? What else? The scope of work. Do you have like a scope of work, what they're going to do every week, or how detailed is the scope of work?
So we do an overall scope of work on the project, but they tell us what they're going to finish. We allow them to set the goal as far as what they're going to finish for the week. And, so we have a timeline, we have a completed finish date, and they let us know what they're going to finish in the week. If we feel like they're not doing enough, we're definitely going to have a conversation. But, so far we've been able to create some good relationships where, for the most part, everybody's been on par with what they need to be each week. So, we do it. We have a document, a standards and practices document that I created way back in 2012 that just basically says reasonable standard of quality, straight lines must be straight. Timelines must be met. This is how we're paying you. We break down how we're paying them. And then we also have a change order policy in there saying basically that change orders can only be billed at the rate that they would have charged us in their original bid. A lot of contractors will try to make extra money off change orders. They'll charge you 2, 3, 4 times more on a change order than they would have in the original bid. So if
can you repeat that? I think it wasn't clear enough. You said on what? On change? I know that contractor asks suddenly, "Oh, we didn't see this coming," and yeah. So how do you handle that?
Well, they'll try to bill you 2, 3, 4 times more for something. Like if it was $100 to replace a faucet, they might charge you $300 because it's a change order, right? So in our standards and practices document that we utilize, we say right on there that change orders have to be billed at the same rate that they would have in the original bid.
But how do you know that? But how do you know it's going to be the same rate?
Well, because we've learned through the years what the typical pricing is going to be on a lot of things. So, and typically, usually when there's a change order, you're adding something that's already maybe 1 or 2 more of something that's already in a bid, or, it's not always. Sometimes a change order is I'm going to move a wall we didn't even talk about moving, but a lot of times it's, oh, we missed this and we need to add this light, or, we gotta do something that's, you will generally have a number, for that item in your bid in some cases, not all cases, but you start to catch on after you do other projects that the typical install is X. Now we've went as far in our organization as we've standardized a lot of pricing. Like we know a linear foot of baseboard installed is a certain amount, right? We know that paint per square foot is going to cost us X. We know that certain light fixtures installed are $40 a light. And so we've standardized that, and we said that this is what we're going to pay for these items. And so now it's even easier because we have to add an extra 2 lights. Well, the standardized price is $40 per light. So, so we've kind of gotten to that point of efficiency when it comes to that. And so contractors know going into it that they can't underbid us and then try to make the money off of change orders. And that's something that people need to understand. A lot of contractors will do. When contractors will bid you have contractors in different pricing, right? Some will try to gouge you, and some of them will way underbid you. And a lot of times we take the guy who has the lowest bid thinking that we're going to save money, and ends up costing us way more than the guy who's going to try to gouge us. You want to have the guy that's pricing you right. The guy is pricing you fair. And it takes a little bit of time to figure that out in the different markets. I know that, but it's important to do the work and to have the conversations and talk to people you trust in those markets and figure out what you should be paying for things to get to that number, because that person who's charging you fair, where they're going to be able to make a reasonable amount of money and you're going to get a decent price, is the one that is at the end of the day, you're going to have the less headaches with. The guy who's giving you the best number generally is the guy who's going to run out of money halfway through the job and disappear or change order you to death, and you're going to end up way over budget.
Yeah. So what do you do if, let's say, he's not making it on time? There is a delay. Do you give them like a fee, like a fine on that, or what do you do? Let's say he's late.
Yeah, I don't. So we don't fine, and there's no right or wrong answer there. We don't. Part of the reason why I don't is because I understand that every day that they're in a project longer than they should is costing them money. It's costing against their profit. And if I have a penalty on there that's eating into their profit as well, I'm more likely to have an issue with a contractor just not showing up and finishing the job.
Yeah.
Then, you know what I'm saying? And that's one of the things I want to avoid. So, understanding, that's we were looking at, like, why are they behind on time? Are they behind on time because they're not doing what they say they're supposed to do when they're supposed to do it? Are they behind on time because they opened up a wall and found a problem with the project that nobody was expecting? It really comes down to why they're behind on time. If they're behind on time for legitimate reasons, as an investor, we just have to understand that and give them the tools they need to get ahead of the game. If they're behind on time because they're not doing what they say they're going to be doing, then we need to look internally at our processes and see, okay, where are we not holding them accountable properly? Where's my project manager dropping the ball? Or what system or process do we have that's not holding accountable? The way we have them bill us and the way we pay them really for us is the carrot. It really keeps control of that time. If a contractor's consistently falling behind and not meeting their goals each week, I can have a new contractor on Monday and that's it.
He's not getting paid.
He's not getting paid, and I have a new guy in there on Monday, and we're done. And I've had to do that, once before, only once actually, where Friday we paid him what they were due, and on Monday I had somebody new in there.
So how do you fire them? Is it in the contract that you can fire them at any time? What?
Yeah. So we're only accountable for the work you did. I mean, that's the way that we were, anything that we do with you, any contracts or any agreements, we're only accountable for the work you completed. We're not accountable for you for the whole job, because I'm not going to stay married to you for the entire job. I've had so many times where contractors have just not shown up and disappeared. They made too many mistakes on the project. It's a learning curve for all of us, right? They're falling behind because they're busy trying to finish other projects and not paying attention to yours. And I've had to replace them. And to me, it's just better. That's why I pay weekly. I would do weekly or biweekly, whatever, you're comfortable with. And then that way it's a clean break. You paid them for the work that they did. You don't owe them anything more, and you're done.
Yeah, but let's say they did like 50% of the job, and it's a crappy job, right?
Right.
Now you don't want to pay them because they did a crappy job, right? But he wants money for the time with his employee. He needs to pay his employee. Now you're debating on some amount. What do? You pay him? You don't pay him? Those are the how do you say the
burning questions.
Those are the circumstances that you fight. When everything is great, it's great, right? But what I want people to understand from your experience is how to handle when things are not working. What do you do in your process?
Let's put it this way. As leaders, right? This is one of my biggest lessons as a leader is our job is to teach, coach, guide, counsel, and correct, right? So just like in your internal team, if you're going to fire somebody and they didn't see it coming, then you're a horrible leader. You're a bad leader. If they don't see it coming, by the time you go to let somebody go, the writing should already be on the wall. They should already know that, hey, I've been counseled, I've been taught, and I've been given chances, and we've had this conversation. And we're not coming to an agreement here. And it's obvious that I'm going to be let go, right? That's really what a leader should be doing, is helping your team grow. If you're halfway through a project and it's so bad that you don't want to pay the person, then you have failed in managing that project. Okay. Either you or your project manager or somebody on your team has failed in managing that project. If somebody's that bad, you should already see the signs of them being that bad in week 1 or week 2, right? And you should be counseling and correcting early on and saying, look, this isn't meeting my standard and we need to correct this. And if that conversation isn't going well, then you should be making a change early on. Okay. If you let a project go halfway through or 75% through and it's horrible, so horrible you want to pay them, then you got to take, at some point you got to take responsibility.
Yeah, but let's say now he's installed in the kitchen and it's, the installment is not good and he doesn't want to fix it, right? You don't want to fix it. He said, that's what I am. So you're going to fire him, but he will say, right, I want you to pay me. Now you can be very nice and, but you don't control what other people, how do they behave. So he can tell you, listen, if you don't pay me, I will rip up the kitchen, or I will take all the things I've done, or I will put a lien on the house, right?
Right.
So how do you handle that?
So, I mean, there's, it's going to go a lot of different ways depending on your situation and who you are as a person. So for me, I'm about getting to the finish line. And then if I'm done with you, I never have to work with you again. Okay. So that's the way I look at it. There's no reason for me to get into squabbles and scraps that I don't need to be deep into. I just need to get the project done and get rid of you and get you out of my life. So if you have a situation where, say, they put the kitchen in like backwards and upside down and it's horrible and they don't want to fix it, you have remedies. I mean, you could file a complaint with the contractor state licensing board of the state. You can go to small claims court for damages. There's a lot of things you can do, and there's a lot of things that they can do, right, to try to get the money and try to claim that they did according to what the agreement was. You got to weigh in that situation. You got to weigh out what's worth the time and money and headache. Now, in a lot of situations, again, if you're managing along the way and you have something come up that's just uncorrectable, but everything else is within line, you can typically look at that and go, okay, is this worth the time, money, and headache, or is it worth just writing this guy a check and getting rid of him? Or maybe you can negotiate with the guy for half the money or 3/4 of the money, and get rid of him. But there's no black or white. It's gray, because every situation is going to be different, and you got to, again, weigh the costs. In some cases, it's been worth it to me to fight a contractor. And in some cases, I've weighed it out and went, well, the numbers they are what they are. And I'm just better off writing him a check and getting him out of my life. And you make sure that he will sign, make sure he signs the full release. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So, I mean, and it's in business, it's the same answer all the way through. It's like, you got to, I can get a lawyer, right? But the time and the energy and the expense of legal action, you might be better off just writing a check and get them out of your life. Of course. So, yeah. I tackled you on this question because we all got screwed by bad. Oh, we all have. Yeah. So, yeah. So for the audience, that's, I think, one of the main fear of people is to not just buying the property, is managing contractors. That's, I think, one of the things to make sure, because you're far away. And, in Israel, we know how hard it is to manage a contractor in Israel, why it's in backyard. So how do you do it? But one of the things you said is having a management company. I think the key component that you said is not to pay upfront at all, and just pay bi-weekly, and find people that are coachable, that they will not argue with you and will want you to be pleased from the job. That's right. That's this combination is what succeeded. Let me see. I think I had more question about that. Okay, I have another one. What about, how do you select the materials you want to put in a house? Let's say you go to a new market. How do you know it's a new market? It's different than what you're working. Of course, renovation, a house in Memphis for a flip, it's different than in the Bay Area, right? So how do you know what do you want to rehab the house? How do you want to rehab the house? So, I mean, you know, when you think about where you're going to be rehabbing, typically, most of us are going to be in like the first time, second time buyer price point, whether it's LA, Oakland, Fresno, or Memphis. And so the Home Depot or the Lowe's contractor grade materials for a first time buyer home across the country are going to be sufficient. You know, if you're looking at, you know, your standard, you know, the 2-pack dome lights that I think are $22 a box, you know, for closets and certain bedrooms, you know, are going to be perfect. The vanity lights, you know, the 2 or 3 light vanity lights for your hall bathrooms, they're going to be sufficient, the contractor grade products. So, you know, as far as that goes, you know, I wouldn't overthink that. You know, your colors right now are going to be like grays, you know, in a lot of markets, grays and whites and stuff like that. That tends to be the trend in the US right now. So you're going to want to go with, you know, paints like tracing paper, which has got a gray tone to it, or cabinets that are white or with a gray tone, or granites and tiles that have, you know, the grays and whites as well. So, so I mean, that's where you got to start not overthinking, but start thinking about the design really is if you're going into like, you know, higher end homes where you got to start, you know, being a little more selective of your material and material quality and style and stuff like that. But if you're staying in that first time buyer price point, especially in a market like Memphis, which is a little bit of a rougher market, your maybe second tier carpets, contractor grade materials are going to be fine. You know, they're going to be sufficient to get the job done. And I think that's one of the things I understand is when you're looking at rehabbing properties, you know, if you want to know what to do in that market, look what the competition's doing in that neighborhood. You know, look at, okay, what other flips have sold in that neighborhood? What are my blueprint properties? And, you know, are they opening up walls? Are they doing higher end materials? Are they doing, you know, granite in the bathrooms and the kitchens? You know, what is my competition doing in that market? And then look at how much they're getting for the homes, how have they sold? That's how you do your homework on that market. And you make your determination on what you're going to do. You do not want to do significantly more than your competition's doing, because you're just throwing money away at that point in time. Now, if the market kind of cools off and properties aren't moving, you might need to have like a sizzle feature in a property or two to make it pop and make it move, but you still don't want to over rehab the property no matter what. So the canned answer is in a certain price point, obviously the contractor grade is sufficient. Nice styles, they have nice styles there. But if you really want the answer, look at that market, look what the competition is doing in that particular neighborhood, and then do the same type of level of rehab they're doing.
Okay. All right. Are you doing also only fix and flip, or are you doing also, you're buying rentals?
We do rentals. We do single family rentals from time to time. I don't usually hold them more than a couple of years, if I'm being real with your audience. We'll usually buy them with a tenant in them, typically Section 8, which is government subsidized. And then we'll keep those until the tenant moves out, and then we'll rehab and resell them. And that's usually about the 2 or 3 year point. So we do rentals. It hasn't been a primary focus. It's more of we accumulate them, you know, kind of as part of just our day-to-day business operations.
Gotcha. All right. I think you answered most of the questions. I have another question somebody asked me on Facebook. When you buy flips, are you holding them under LLC, or how do you holding your flips? Let's say you have 10 flips, or you said, I don't know, 10 flips at the same time. How do you hold them then?
So we do a corporation. You can do an LLC or corporation. You got to really look at the state you're doing them in, because like in California, an LLC taxes an LLC is taxed on your revenue and not your income. And so you'll have, you know, like you can pay as much as $6,000 in tax liability based on revenue, and you may not have earned any money that year. So if you're going to be an LLC, you look at that state. For instance, again, California, you want to be an LLC taxed as a C Corp or taxed as an S Corp. So, but typically I would hold under an LLC or a C Corp. I would just do my research for that particular state to see which one's going to be more suitable for what you're doing.
Okay. All right. People asking, is it a good time to do flips now?
It's a good time to do flips if you're buying right anytime, right? If you're buying right for the market. And that's easier said than done right now, because again, like I think you said in the beginning, like nobody knows what's going to happen to the market right now. So right now in the US, most markets are still pretty hot. Properties are hitting the market and they're going fairly quick. We are seeing some credit tightening. Obviously, there's a lot of people that have lack of income right now. So there's going to be some repercussions from that. We don't know what that is. I would be conservative. I would make sure that I'm buying. I wouldn't be aggressive in my buying. Like I wouldn't be 80 cents or 90 cents on the dollar. I would be buying to make sure that I'm getting a good deal. And I would look at the market and maybe do a little research and homework. Like I said, in 2008, my particular market dropped about 25%. In Las Vegas, it was roughly 50% or better of a drop. So look at the market that you're going to be buying in and look at what kind of drop it did in 08, which is probably the worst drop the markets ever did, at least in our lifetime. And if you feel like you can buy and renovate that project and get out of that project, and if we have a hit like we had in 2008, you'd be okay in that project and at least not lose money, then you're probably buying a good deal. Gotcha. That's probably the safest way to go about it. I mean, to be honest with you, because I don't care who predicts, like no one has ever seen a whole global economy shut down. We just don't know what the repercussions are. And it could be the best thing that ever happened or the worst thing that ever happened.
Right. Okay. I think let's start looking at questions that people, it's time to put questions, guys. But you will see there will start to be a lot of questions. So we're going to pick a few of them. I think we're going to finish in maybe 20 minutes or so. Let's see. For next, okay, people ask about that. So it's time to ask questions. Oh, you see, you're looking at the questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's see if I see any question before. Oh, what's the site name for seeing the house, please? You said something if I want to send somebody. What is the name of that?
WeGoLook.com.
WeGoLook.com. Okay,
mm-hmm.
WeGoLook.com.
So we got here. How do I get financing for 100 properties? We do private money. We develop relationships with people who have retirement accounts or money in the bank, and they fund our projects. And like we said, we do one lender, one project, just like a bank would, first position loans, and that's how we get our projects funded.
Okay. How do you suggest people who have no experience in, finding private money? How do you suggest they will do it?
Sorry, ask me that question more time.
Sure. So a few people here don't have enough experience in raising money for
right.
it. So
okay.
What do you suggest them to do? Where to find them? How to pitch? When you have for example, if you have no experience.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a fantastic question, and
thank you.
When I was brand new, the way I pitched was I did partnerships. I did JVs where they put up the money and I did the work, and we split the profit right down the middle. So the liability, the upside was better for the lender, and that may be the way you want to go if you have no experience. Is give the lender more upside. Once you gain experience, you can go for rate and term. You can go for cheaper money. So the way I would frame it, especially if you're developing relationships, is just say, look, you know what, this is the first project I'm in, be upfront and honest, but I have this, these, like if you're going to do a project in California, you can reach out to me, or I know Haim's in San Francisco. I don't know if you've had him on here yet or not, but you can reach out to one of us and we can give you some advice, and you can say, look, I got an advisor in that market that has experience. It's helped me, giving me advice on that project. So leverage the relationships you're building. The world is wide open to you right now. It's not as small as it once was, right? We have friends and advisors all over the world. We can Zoom, we can talk, we can share. And so I would leverage that, that I have these people around me that are giving me the input I need to make the right decisions. And you're just going to have to, build the relationship of trust with that individual. They're really betting on you to get it to the finish line. If you can establish that you can get it done, and you're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure it's done, and it's done in the right way, and they can feel that, then you're going to find somebody that's going to take the gamble on you.
Good. That's good. Good advice. Okay, let's see. There is anything upfront to the contract. You said, So Robert asked, I have no money to invest, but I'm motivated. So Robert, like he said, like Don said, find an investor that will fund the deal and you split. How do you market your houses in a new market? Do you sell? You probably sell on the market, right? Make no sense.
Well, if they're rehabs, one of the things I want to say to somebody says I have no money, but I want to do this, wholesaling, we're talking about rehabbing here, but wholesaling is a great way to get momentum. And it's also a great way to start learning the market and learning what things sell for and what sells and what doesn't sell. I would rather get a wholesale contract that I can't move than a flip, right? So you get into that market, you start locking up properties, you start looking for buyers, start marketing for buyers, and you start wholesaling your property, start making money, you start building relationships with the buyers. And then maybe that's your board of directors when you start flipping in that market that help you out once you start developing those relationships. So, don't a lot of people when they're going after this business, they want to eat the whole elephant, right? They want it all at once. And sometimes it's little chunks at a time, right? That you got to do it. So look for the avenues where you can enter the market and make money, and wholesaling would be a great one.
Okay, good. How much, what is the ARV you're looking on deals? 300, 200, 150? What is your sweet spot?
It depends on the market, right? The first time buyer, second time buyer price point for that market. So typically we don't want to be much higher than the median home value. So the median home value in the market's 250. We're going to be looking at marketing the properties around 300 or below for ARV, right? That's what we're going to be shooting for. Our average, like in the Fresno market, our average all in on a project is about 175.
So you're looking to see what is the median house value in the area? Okay, gotcha.
That's going to be, first time buyer, second time buyer sweet spot, because that's really the first time buyer price point is what moves. It just, that's what sells. You go high end, and sometimes you're in that project, quite a while because you had a limited buyer pool.
How do you control or check each week that the contractor did a good work and then you pay? So you have a project manager, but let's say you don't have a project manager. How do you do it?
So I would send a company like We Go Look. Okay. I would spend a little bit of money and have somebody like We Go Look and give them a specific, like I would build a picture list for them. These are the pictures you need to take every week. And then maybe each week give them a special, like this is what the contractor said they finished. So make sure you double check this stuff. Don't trust the contractor to send you pictures because they're going to send you the best shots of everything. Of course. So I would have somebody independent, either the agent that's going to be listing the property for you. They may be somebody that's willing to work with you as part of your team to inspect and make sure things are happening like they're supposed to at the quality they're supposed to. In fact, they'll have a vested interest in the success of that project because they get a commission when it sells. Or I would have a company like We Go Look.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Let's see what else. Lenders. Do you work with hand lenders or some of it yours? Okay, you answered it already.
I don't do hard money. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Which members do you have in your team? So Elad asked, what do you do if you, after 2 months, you have a problem with the result of renovation? So you answer that if you are in a problem after 2 months, it means that something was wrong in your process at the beginning.
Right. So, but that question probably could also mean like, if you finish the project and a month later there's a problem after it's done, right? Or 2 months later after it's done. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's how it was asked or not, but again, you got to make sure you're working with somebody that's reputable and stands behind their work. The contractors we work with guarantee the work that they did. And if there's a problem with the work they did, they come back and fix it. And if they're not going to be that caliber of contractor, we're not going to work with them.
Okay.
Right here, Don doesn't give anything up front to the contractor. No, we don't. Again, when you think about the job, they're doing trash out and demo the first week. So if they're going to do trash out and demo and then they bill us for that, they're going to get paid for that. If a contractor, now I want to frame this. I'm not like hard and I don't want to drive anybody into the poorhouse. So if a contractor is not somebody that has a lot of money and they need extra money for materials, I may give them a little bit more in the week, maybe a little bit more, like maybe $1,000 more because they're going to buy some materials, but I'm not going to give them $10 or $15 or $20,000 up front to go buy materials.
Yeah.
Case by case, I will pad somebody's payment to help them out, but it's just enough to find that balance of staying safe and making sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
So they need to pay for materials and the work from their own pocket, and then you
right, and then get reimbursed. That's how we work with the contractors. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to see question we didn't. How much we go Luke charge?
That is a fantastic question. For whatever market you're in, it's probably going to be a little bit different. Whatever you have them do, it's going to be a little bit different. So I would do your research on that. I don't want to give a canned answer and have somebody hold me to it. It's going to be different, and depending on what you have them do.
Yeah, but nobody will.
It's nominal. Yeah, it's not super expensive.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. People are amazed here that you don't pay anything to the contractor up front. They keep asking the same question.
You got to set the expectation.
Yeah. Do you focus on one? Okay. Do you focus on one place, or you go all over? I think so from what you said, you're focused on areas, and then you see it stabilize or the system is working, then you add.
I add layers. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have any kind of checklist of interviews that you do to contractors that you can share? I think people would, you make them interested by the checklist and the contract. Is there anything you can give them that they can, any checklist or something that you can?
Yeah, they can. Okay, so I'm actually in the process of building out some of the checklists that we can share. I know my guys got a document that is not user friendly that I can share, but we're building out something user friendly. But you can, shameless plug, hopefully it's okay. If they go to fliptalk.com and on the resources page, there's a resources link. There are documents like the purchase contract we use and some other stuff we use, but there's the standards and practice document that I just talked about on that resources page. All they got to do is put an email address in, it'll send them that document.
Nice.
And that's the exact document we use. And so that document, and then what I would do is just stay in contact with me, because I am building out some of that stuff to share with the public.
Can you put a link to your website?
Yeah.
That's a better thing for them. Meanwhile, I will, to the resources and, okay.
Here we go.
Okay. So how many % of leverage you have in one deal? So you get a 100% leverage on the deal, right?
Mm-hmm. I do.
Yeah. Okay.
I do. And let me explain the reason why, because I think this is important. The typical thought is with hard money lenders and banks is you usually come in with like 10 or 20% down, right, on a property, and a lot of lenders will say, well, I want you to have skin in the game, because if you don't have skin in the game, you can just walk away at any time. Okay, that's the typical thought. But when you're running a real business like ours, and you're running at volume where you're doing a lot of projects, if you think 20% just on, to say you got 5 properties at $100,000 each. You're talking about $100,000 of your money tied up in projects on 5 properties at 20% down each, right? So, and then you do 10, you do 15, you do 20, you quantify that. There are companies that will end up with anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million of their money in projects that's tied up at all times. Well, how do you run a healthy business when, as you're scaling, you're just reinvesting revenue into projects instead of putting it into a bank? Right? Instead of building reserves. And so when I was growing, I started running into the situation where I would have all my money in projects and no money in the bank. And the mindset of the people you're lending to, think about that. Like, how do I run my business from a position of power? If I need a property to sell to make payroll, I need a property to sell to make rent, or I need a property to sell for my office, or I need a property to sell to do marketing, then I'm going to make decisions differently on that project. Decisions from a position of weakness. I just need it to sell. If I'm in a position where I can make the best decision for that project and I don't need the money, I'm more likely to be a successful bet for you as an investor. And that's all. When I sat down with the investors I worked with and had that conversation, I'm going to keep these reserves. I'm going to keep money in my bank. I'm going to keep a healthy business, but I'm going to do it this way because I want to operate from a position of power. And I always want to make my decisions in my business for what's best for you, the investor, and the business that I run, and not anything from desperation. It made sense to everybody. So I borrow 100% on the projects that I do. The lenders land purchase, rehab, and holding costs for that project. I don't put my money in, but I have reserves in my account so I can operate a healthy business. I can make the right decisions, and I can take care of the investor and run the project the way it's supposed to be ran.
So if you have, let's say, unexpected renovation, okay, who's going to pay that?
So in this particular, if you're JVing, right, 50-50, then the lender, if there's an unexpected renovation, it's on the lender. That's typically how the relationship works. If you're borrowing rate and term and you're only borrowing a certain amount and you have an unexpected cost, then that's on you. But if it's on me, say I borrow 140 and ends up costing me 150, that 10 grand comes out of my bank. If all my money's in 10 other projects and I run into that problem, then I'm borrowing from Peter to pay Paul to try to finish that project. Whereas if I have a few $100,000 in the bank and I have a $10,000 a situation, it's not a big deal. See what I'm saying? It changes everything.
Yes.
And then I'm doing that because that's the right thing for the business instead of trying to cut corners because I don't have the 10 grand because it's in a project. Gotcha.
It's a great way. Okay, let's see. Good. How do you decide what is the ARV in the new market?
You use the data. So there's obviously talking to agents in the market, and agents will give you their ARVs for particular projects, their after repair values. They can give you, I'm trying to think of the term here, basically a market analysis. It's a CMA. Current market analysis, and they can give you that, where it gives you a breakdown of different properties. You can make your own decision. That you can use actually Zillow and go through and look at what is sold in particular neighborhoods. Don't use the Zestimate, but look at what's sold in neighborhoods. That data is actually on Zillow. And there's a program called PropStream that you can use that is actually gives you MLS data for a market. So.
Yeah. So how do you decide which market you're gonna go after?
It depends on how you operate as a business person, right? So for us as a company, we look at some of it is just, I would hate to use the term instinct, but we'll look at a market. We like the market. We feel good about the market, and we'll start testing. If we get results that we want in the market, we'll enter the market a little bit more aggressively. If we don't, then we'll reevaluate and maybe we won't attack that market. Some people will actually get a little bit more analytical and they'll start looking at data. They'll pull a list of how many active transactions are in that market and decide that way, right? They'll go to like a company like ListSource or again PropStream, and they'll start looking at, well, how many active transactions, how many active cash buyers are in that market, and is that a market I want to tackle? The one thing I would say is you want a market where there's activity. You want a market where there is demand for properties. You don't want a market where it hasn't been a sale in the last 6 months. So that's an important thing to understand is there really isn't a right or wrong answer. What are you comfortable with? If you don't have a whole lot of money behind you and you want to be flipping, then you probably want to start in a market like, a Memphis or, something like, Columbus, Ohio, or where the price points are a little bit more depressed. If you got extra capital and you want to make the higher spreads, maybe you enter someplace like the Bay Area where your entry-level home is $500,000. So, look at your situation and then do your homework on the activity in the market. And do you feel comfortable with the activity there?
Okay. All right. I think I think we covered most of the question. Of course, going to be more. So I don't know. Anything else you want to say to the audience before we finish? I don't know. Any advice?
Yeah, I mean, like I said before, you know, a lot of us, we want to attack everything. We want to eat the whole elephant. You know, it's important that everything's a learning and growing experience. All new relationships. Every time I hire somebody, it's, you know, I'm learning something new. And so how to manage, how to coach, what, you know, how to probably set expectations. So don't overthink it, take action, get started, get out there, start building relationships in the area that you want to be in, start talking to real estate agents, other people that are working in that market, you know, and start learning who you can work with, and then start, you know, taking a little bit of action. You know, I think it's important to do that and learn from that. Like I said, deploy some marketing, see what results you get. And if you like the results, pour a little more fuel on the fire and continue to work on those results. So just take action.
Okay, good. So I would say something in Hebrew. I'll say it in English. So we're all gonna say thank you to, I'm tired. I started to be tired, you know, to Don. And then I was gonna stay and answer in Hebrew for question you still have. Everybody say thanks to Don. It's late here in Israel, but in his place is the middle of the day.
It's the middle of the day. Yep. Thank you guys for watching.
Yeah. Don was it was very good interview. Really enjoyed it, and we should talk more. You know, talking about more things later on the private. Thank you very much for being on the show.
Great. Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Have a wonderful weekend. The rest of the week.
You too. Absolutely. Yeah.
Thanks, Don. Everybody say thanks.
All right.
ביי. אוקיי, אנשים, אתם מוזמנים לשאול בעברית שאלות שלא הצלחנו לענות. מוזמנים לשאול שאלות לפני שנסיים. אם יש שאלות. וגם ככה לפני סיום אני שם פה קצת את הלינקים שאני גם העליתי בהתחלה, אם לא הייתם בהתחלה, לגבי התוכנית ופרטים נוספים, וגם על התוכנית דיל מייקר שאנחנו פותחים. אז זה הפרטים. בואו נראה מה קורה, ועכשיו נענה על שאלות, מה קורה אם יש לו עובדים זרים עכשיו בזמן הקורונה. כלומר, מה זה עובדים זרים? אם יש לו עובדים שלא יכולים לבוא ולהסתובב? כמה נהוג לשלם למנהל פרויקט? הוא אמר שזה מאוד תלוי, צריך לבוא ולראיין אותו ולראות מה האקספקטיישן שלו. אנחנו בפרויקט, אנחנו, ואני אומר, תלמיד שלי השתמש במנהל פרויקט בקולומבוס, והוא שלם $600 לחודש. הוא אתר שהוא ציין לגבי מציאת מנהלי פרויקטים, אז לגבי איפה למצוא מנהלי פרויקטים, הוא אמר, אפשר לפרסם בקרייגליסט, הוא אמר, איפה עוד אמר שזה, לשאול אייג'נטים, לשאול טייטל קומפניז, ושם הם יכולים לעזור. בכיף, תומר בר, כיף לראות אותך פה. איך קוראים ווב סייט של מרקט אנליסט? ניר ירון, לא כל כך הבנתי את השאלה העיקרית. הבנתי, דניאל שואל אם עובדים זרים זה בדרך כלל לא עובדים זרים, זה לא כמו בישראל, זה עובדים מקומיים, אוקיי? ואם אין להם אישור לעבוד, אם זה אזור שאין אישור לעבוד, אז הם לא עובדים. אמריקאים לא עובדים. אז זה מעכב את השיפוצים. עוד שאלות שיש לכם לפני שאנחנו ככה מסיימים? עוד שאלות? אתן לכם הזדמנות ככה אחרונה. טוב, יקיריי, היה לו אתר שעושה מרקט אנליסיס. לא, ניר אומר, היה לו אתר שעושה מרקט אנליסיס, אני לא כל כך זוכר. אנחנו נפתח דיון מחר בבוקר בקבוצת דיל מייקר, אז אם יהיה לכם שאלות ואנשים יזכרו, אז מה מחכה לנו שבוע הבא? האמת, כנרל שנראיין אותי, עוד לא החלטתי לגמרי על נושאים, יש איזה כמה אופציות שאנחנו נעשה, או שנדבר על שותפים, על עבודה עם שותפים, יש לי ניסיון המון עם שותפים, ניסיון טוב וניסיון לא טוב, אז איך בעצם בוחרים שותף, זה נושא אחד שאולי אני אדבר עליו, וראיינות, אני רוצה לעשות את זה בכיוון של ראיון, שהפעם ראיינו אותי. וכן, תכף אני רואה את השאלות ואני אגיב. יכול להיות או הנושא הזה, או הנושא של כישלונות שהיה לי בדרך, זה יכול להיות מאוד מעניין, כל מיני כישלונות של דברים שלמדתי בדרך. זה לדעתי אחד משני הנושאים האלה, אנחנו נתקוף אותם, אני עוד צריך לחשוב על זה מחר ואני אחליט. שאמרו על האתר, קופי, פופסטרים זה האתר שהוא דיבר עליו, וזה האתר שממנו אפשר למשוך נתונים של אונרים. עוד איזה, שואלים פה על נושא מימון ואסטרטגיות מינוף, יניב שואל לגבי אסטרטגיות מינוף. דרך אגב, היה שיעור על מינוף, היה שידור על מינוף בחדר מצב מספר 2, שווה לבדוק בהקלטות. אתה ממליץ להיעזר במנהל פרויקט מקצועי שאפשר להישאר עם אינספקטור וסוכן. אם זה פרויקטים של שיפוץ של 30, 40 ומעלה, אני ממליץ להשתמש במנהל פרויקט. מציאת שותף מקומי. אוקיי, זה אפשר לבוא ולדבר על הנושא הזה. איך עושים את זה? אוקיי, חברים, נראה לי שסיימנו. המון תודה, מקווה שנהניתם. תמיד מזמין אתכם לבוא ולהזמין אנשים נוספים, להצטרף לחדר מצב, לשידורים, ואנחנו נמשיך להביא ערך טוב. שיהיה לכולם לילה טוב, היה לי כיף. לילה טוב, יקיריי. ביי.